today we welcome back the wonderful Lowen Partridge to the podcast. Lowen is a branding and marketing expert. Her business is Pear Tree Branding
Strategy.
Brand Strategy.
Yeah, I do what it says on the tin, Kate.
You do what it says on the tin. And I'm very excited to have you back because we're going to talk about all things branding today. It's very good to have you. Lowen, tell us how you got into branding. How do you become a brand strategist? How did this happen?
Well, like most things in life, it was serendipitous.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a consultant at one of the big accounting firms who was specialising. He had noticed that there was the potential was in brand, in concentrating on brand, and his background was in IT. And asked if I'd like to join him. This was back in the early 2000s. So we're talking about 25 years ago. And he had the IT background. I had the marketing, and I also kind of specialised in sponsorship as well, because sponsorship is a really effective way of developing a brand. And he knew that through his research. And because I knew a lot about sponsorship and marketing, he invited me to join him in the development of a product, basically, that we developed to help their clients and my clients develop a brand-focused attitude, which was more than just the logo. Because most people think that brand is your visual identity, which is your mark or your logo. But we were looking at a holistic view of brand strategy, which was getting absolute clarity on how you differentiated from your competitors, how you resonated with your customer base, who you were and what you stood for, documenting it, and then getting alignment with your product mix, with your internal culture, and then with your external communication. So it was a very different approach to brand.
Yes.
And we developed it in the early stages. He didn't stay on at the accounting firm, and they dropped all of that sort of stuff. And I just carried on under Pear Tree.
Pear Tree is such a great name.
Thank you.
Your surname is
an evocative name.
It's a great name.
Brand names can be descriptive, vented, experiential, or evocative. And the most powerful names are evocative, where they relate to something that you already know, like Virgin, for example, but they evoke something else. You know, it links to something else. So it's kind of witty or quirky.
Yeah. And yours is both witty and quirky.
Yeah. And the huddle works too.
Yeah.
Because it's lovely to say, huddle.
Yes, it is. It feels like a big cuddle.
It does.
And it's the huddle, and lots of teams have huddles, so we identify with it. I like huddle, and I also think of sport, particularly football, but thinking about the huddles that you have at quarter time where you slow down and you strategize and you nurture and all of those things. So that's where the huddle comes from.
And Kate, that's a wonderful explanation and implementation of your brand by understanding who you are and what you stand for and how you differentiate. Coming up with a name that exemplifies that is textbook stuff.
Very good.
Big tip for you.
Which is really good. So branding is really interesting, and I think it's pivotal to leadership, because if we know who we are and what we're trying to achieve, then it's much easier for everybody to get on and do the job.
Absolutely. And you save from a business perspective, you save so much money and you avoid disaster. If you don't know who you are and what you stand for, how your brand sits in the marketplace and what you want it to be, people in the organisation go off doing what they think they should be doing, and it's usually what they think they should be doing, what they like, and suddenly your brand becomes diluted and confused, and all of the money that you spend on your marketing or on people development or whatever can be wasted because it's not all heading in the same direction.
Absolutely. It also creates conflict, lots of conflict, because as you say, people are doing what they want to do or what they think is the right thing to do, And then they can end up in conflict because you've got it wrong. They end up in arguments about who's the more superior, who's right here. I see it play out all the time.
But Kate, speaking of leadership, the brand really falls on the leadership of the organisation.
Yes.
It's the ownership of the business and the board and the senior leadership team. They're the people that should be driving what the brand is all about. They don't have to implement it, but they certainly need to provide the guidance and the leadership on what our brand is all about. They can't leave it to the marketing department, and by God, they can't leave it to the external advertising agency.
No. But it is really interesting that organisations still struggle with this quite a lot. And when a branding person comes in, those questions are quite hard to answer at times.
Well, and in most cases, the branding person is a graphic designer or an ad agency.
Mm-hmm.
They've only got that external perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in their wheelhouse to deal with how the brand is implemented internally.
Right. Can you talk more about that?
Sure.
Does that come back to thinking it's a logo?
Yeah, everyone thinks brand is logo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they don't realise. Often I don't even use the word brand. I talk about reputation. And when I start talking about your business's reputation, that's when they don't think about brand. They don't think about logo then.
Yeah.
They just think about the reputation, and they do get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I provide the guidance on what that means and
Mm-hmm.
then how to implement it. Because the visual stuff is important, but it's important in that it reflects the reputation they want to develop.
Yes. I think that I come across so often organisations where the leader is passionate, all of the things, but they don't necessarily know how to communicate what they want or what they're trying to achieve. They've got a very broad idea about what they're trying to do, but they don't get to the nuts and bolts. And I do recognise that getting clarity takes time, but it seems to me that the broader the definition is, the harder it is to achieve. And I look at every single football club in the world as their vision statement. We exist to win grand finals. It's sort of like, okay, what is that? That is actually quite broad. I get what they're trying to achieve, but it's when for a period of time, Port Adelaide, who is my club, had as part of their vision statement, they expanded that. They said, we exist to win grand finals and to make the community proud. And I went, I can live with that a whole lot better because now it's got some heart and integrity and it's not just about win at all costs.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that clarity piece is so important, but it's also how do you message that to your team?
And it's very important internally as well as externally.
Absolutely.
Because your staff are really important in exemplifying the brand. All staff members have to be able to live the brand.
Mm.
And if they can't, then either they or the company the brand needs to make decisions about, do they stay or what happens. Interestingly, when I go through a branding exercise and there are changes to the brand, they actually decide that they're going in a slightly different direction. I've had a couple of clients who have said, we've got some people in this organisation that just don't fit this brand. What are we going to do? And I said, just wait. Wait until I do the brand reveal to staff and you might get some surprises. And every time once I've worked with the leadership team to develop the brand and to document the elements that they want to be known for. It's an aspirational brand, so there are things that they've got to work on. But once that's been signed off by the leadership team, the first step of implementation is to bring the staff in. Now, I usually bring them in at the very beginning of the exercise because we start with market research when we're developing the brand identity. And so surveying staff is just as important as surveying clients and non-customers. So they're already attuned to what's going on and they're starting to think about brand. So at the end of the exercise, when we start on the implementation, I reveal to them not only how brands work, because it's important that they understand the context in which we've developed the brand identity, but then I outline what are the core elements that their brand wants to be. What are the extended elements? And that can include the brand personality, brand symbols, and then that's all coalesced into a brand essence. So it's you distill it down into one or two words, and then we workshop that brand identity. And the first question, they're all in their operational groups. So you'll have admin sitting together and the sales department sitting together. Engineering might sit together, and the board will sit, because they're just as important in implementing the brand. And so the first question is, what are we currently doing that we have to keep doing to live the brand? And they workshop that, and then they feedback. The second question is, what are we not doing that we have to start doing to live the brand that we want to be? They workshop that and then feedback. And then the third question, where there's a little bit of overlap with the second one, is what are we currently doing that is actually counterproductive to the brand that we want to be, that we've got to stop doing? And again, they workshop that and feedback. And by the end of that exercise, everybody in the room understands that they are just as important as the marketing department in building the brand. And the people who are sitting in the room looking at how this brand has been presented and is unfolding realize that they don't fit. And often they will resign. And that has happened on not often, because brands don't change greatly. Often it's just a matter of getting clarity so that they're really clear on who they are and what they want to be. And they're kind of muddling through, so the people they've got on board are generally okay. But sometimes when there's a change in direction, there will be people that don't fit, not because they're not good workers, but because what they do doesn't fit with what the brand is going to be doing.
Or their values don't align. Yeah, I often refer to that as culturing people in or out. Like the clearer you get, the more obvious it is as to whether or not this is going to work for you or not. This is where you want to be or you don't want to be.
Yeah. And that's when companies have chosen an employee based on their technical skill rather than their person, or their brand fit, really.
I've seen that so many times too. It's painful and sort of like, toxic as well. Yeah. So I love that inclusive approach, because people do want to contribute. The brand and the business and all of those things are hugely important to every individual in that workplace. And so being offered the opportunity to be part of that decision-making process, amazing.
But and not only that, Kate, the value that comes from going through this exercise and having the document, the brand document, and then communicating to staff, is that when people are going off brand or they come up with a great idea, you can assess the idea or the behaviour against the brand. It's not a manager saying, I don't think you're behaving properly, you're not behaving the way we do around here, based on what they think.
No.
There is an agreed brand document that this is what our business, this is what we are all about. And I'm just wondering whether you feel that what you did yesterday afternoon was on brand.
Yeah.
And so it makes it an objective exercise instead of subjective. But, the other thing, Kate, is that most employees want to do the right thing. They want to be good workers. They want to do what their employer wants them to do. But if they don't have the guidance, then they either, go feral.
Yeah.
Or they try hard to sort of double guess what they should be doing.
Yes. Which then brings us back to conflict, which then often gives us some really useful information about our lack of clarity. Yeah. Have you ever done any work in not-for-profits?
Yeah, quite a bit.
I have found that often the volunteer, people volunteering have often got a commitment about wanting to fix something or do something, and it doesn't always sit within brand. There are some challenges that are associated with managing volunteers if we're not very, very clear about what we're trying to achieve.
Exactly. And so having a clear brand identity, which is just a document that outlines the elements that you want to be known for.
Mm.
And importantly, communicating. Okay, it can't just sit on a wall. It needs to get out there so people know. But that's where it's really important to include staff. So once I've done the brand reveal, one of the things I recommend, particularly in larger organisations, is to establish what we call a brand team. And that's where you take one or two people from the different areas of the business to be part of the brand team, and they look at how the brand can be implemented internally. They're not responsible for the advertising or anything like that, but they act as a conduit between the leadership team and staff on bringing ideas, because after I've gone through the reveal exercise, everybody's really enthused and they've got so many ideas on what could be done. And all of those ideas need to be collected and assessed on, whether they work, how much they cost to implement, whether it fits with some of the other stuff that's happening. And then, so maintaining that momentum is really important. And you can do that through the establishment of a brand team within the organisation.
And that brand team, I imagine, get a lot of joy out of that too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to feel really proud about what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. So tell me about, we were talking before we started recording, around branding and social media and sort of in a world where there is so much noise and a lot of it's binary, like there's just sort of you're in, you're out, all of the things. How do we get our clear messaging out to the world now in a world that is so noisy?
Well, the good thing about social media is that you can target. In the old days with legacy media, you advertised in a newspaper, you advertised on television, on radio. Television and radio were better at being able to describe the audience that would be watching a particular show because they did a lot of research. And so they could tell who was watching the news or who was watching Dancing with the Stars or what were the profile of, the different viewers were. So there was a bit more science going on. It's a bit harder for a daily newspaper, especially, when there's only one in the city. You are reaching a mass market, so it's harder to target. And the other thing too with print advertising is that when you open the newspaper or the magazine, people just ignore the ads. They'll just read the copy, and if it's not interesting, they'll keep going. Whereas, I don't know, but I actually hop up and that's when I make a cup of tea when the ads are on, if I'm actually watching a TV station that has advertising. Or, that's why a lot of us stream, because we just don't want to be bombarded by it. So my point being that people who can use social media effectively to build their brand and also to build their market and build their sales by using the social media to reach their target market. And the algorithms can be worked in such a way that you can work out precisely who your target market is, and ads can be sent through Instagram immediately. If you're selling fast moving consumer goods, or you've got a coffee shop in a particular suburb, you can identify who you can reach. Now, I don't do all of that stuff. I leave that to the advertising agencies. So I agree with you, there's a lot of noise, but the market is very niche these days. There are very few mass marketed companies, and they still use the legacy media. I'm talking about Coca-Cola and, all of those sorts of things. Most brands these days are niched. And so they concentrate, the clever ones concentrate on they've got to have Instagram, they've got to have Facebook, because they're targeting those different age groups. well, but the focus should always be on developing their own database. Because I don't know about you, but I'm much more likely to look at an email that comes through to me from, as I did this morning, from Joe Mercer.
Mm.
I could do with some summer shoes. I'll just see what
Yeah.
they've got.
Yeah.
Rather than if I see, well, for a start, my brain is programmed to sort of ignore ads
Yeah.
on a if I'm looking at a newsfeed. I just don't, it just doesn't register. So there are two reasons why you will want to build your database. One is because your market will actually notice it more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And secondly, because the platforms can change their rules at a moment's notice and you can lose your data. But if you've had a campaign running on Facebook or Instagram where people have to click and put in their email address in order to get a free brochure
Yeah.
or a free assessment or whatever, then immediately you've got them in your own database, which is what you should be aiming to do.
Yes. We have found, though, that some people have a generic email, which looks like something at Gmail, and they don't necessarily give away, so they'll use that to just sort of get little bits of, but they don't give you another email that might be more helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, and I've been known to do this too, Kate.
Yes.
Where I'll get a report of some description.
Yeah.
And then, I start getting some of their emails and I think, oh, I've just got so much coming through, and I'll just unsubscribe.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So it's nothing's foolproof.
Nothing foolproof, is it? But I suppose it's understanding, when you understand who your audience is, then it gets easier to work out who to target.
Absolutely.
So again, know
And
thyself.
understanding your audience comes from understanding your brand.
Yeah. And so it goes back to leadership, which is know thyself.
Yes. And communicate.
And communicate. The navel gazing is a really important part of it. Know thyself. Because then it also goes to authenticity, because it's much easier to lead from who you are than trying to be something you're not either. So it's,
that's true.
Fake it till you make it. And it's like, how about you be who you are? Let's explore who that is. Who are you?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because you're talking about know thyself, as a
leader,
as a business brand. I also work a lot with usually young professionals
who
come to me to help them with their personal brand.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same. You can't manufacture your values.
No.
But you can, what it is you want to achieve, what you want to be known for. So let's take an accountant who is from the Coonawarra,
Mm-hmm.
and wants to specialise in becoming known for advising wine companies. So immediately he's got a bit of a heritage because he's from the Coonawarra, or she has a heritage in coming from the Coonawarra. But what else do they need to be known for in order to be seen as a specialist and a leading accountant in business development, particularly for wineries or people in the wine industry? And that might come down to, well, you might need a few more qualifications.
Yeah.
You need to raise your profile in that industry. So get involved with the wine groups.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the drinking groups. I'm talking about the industry. But, it doesn't hurt to be a consumer as well. And also identifying what your values are. Because, being known as being really diligent is one value. But then the accountant I'm talking about might actually have a value of being innovative and always looking for new ways of doing things. And that becomes appealing to a particular group of people.
Yes.
And then understanding what elements of your personality that you want to promote and be part of your business brand. And then when you've worked all that out, then you can work out, well, what sorts of clothes should I be wearing?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What what education, what courses do I need to do? What groups do I have to join? What networking do I have to do?
Yeah.
I'm a strategist. I really like getting the strategy right and then going for it, because I'm not into waste. Okay.
No.
I don't like wasting time or money. And if you've got a plan to start with, it's much more efficient.
But it also makes it easier, doesn't it?
Mm.
And I think, with my conflict hat on, what we often do is we don't have a plan, and I'm guilty of this as anybody, because I've got an idea but I don't have a plan, and so I rush ahead with my idea without the plan, and people get, oh, that's a lovely idea, and so but it doesn't lend itself to supporting a clear way of working while we're proceeding, so that the plan helps everybody understand, helps manage expectations. This is where we're at, this is where we're going, and we know how we're going to do it. When we don't plan, and when we're just sort of very ad hoc and like me, go very fast, we can unintentionally create all this conflict because we haven't told people where we're going, and we're a bit, oh yeah, now we've changed our mind, now we're going here because that was really exciting, and I've seen a bright shiny object over there and I'm going there. And it's all done with wonderful intention, but it sets people up to fail or to feel really confused or agitated. So
yeah, and getting the, didn't I tell you about that?
Yeah, in my head I did. Yeah, I was going to do that, and and I do go fast, and I have shiny object syndrome and all of those things. And I always say, do as I say, don't do what I do, because I can break anything. But this is the thing, is we all have good intentions, but if we actually want to implement things very successfully, quickly, strategically, having a plan is incredibly valuable because it helps us manage everybody's expectations, and then we're going to have a
and
whole
not
lot less.
only that, it helps manage contributions too.
Yeah.
Because once other people know what the plan is, then they will come up with good ideas.
Yeah.
And they will be able to make relevant suggestions.
Yes. Yes.
Rather than everybody just throwing random ideas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Lowen.
We've come to the end of our half.
We have. We've done it again. I know it goes so fast, but I love that, because I think it's brand awareness is not, it's so powerful. It is, and it is reputation. It is, how do you want to be perceived? How do you want to be?
It is.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to a personal brand, you already have a personal brand.
Yeah.
But the question is it the one that you want?
Yes. Yes.
And in a way, it's the same thing with a product or a service brand, business brand. You will have a brand, but it could be a very weak brand because nobody knows about it and there's total confusion. And that is in fact your brand, that you're totally confused.
Yeah.
So being clear on what it is you want to be known for enables you to build a strong brand.
Clarity. Everybody's best friend. Fantastic. Well, thank you.
Pleasure.
It was great. Till next time.
So see you next time, Kay. Bye.